Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and shout out to Fioli for the, inspiration behind this video. He asked a question in the YouTube comments saying, hey Phil, how do your farming habits change in the endgame? And I really like this question, one, because I'm in the endgame, so I kind of know this answer and can preach to it because I'm doing it now, but also because asking questions like this, even when I wasn't in the endgame, is what made me the player I am today. One of the reasons I feel I was able to really succeed and excel in some of the earlier parts of the game was I understood. I asked the questions of those endgame players. What are their bottlenecks? What are they working on? What are they doing? And by asking that, I was kind of able to root out what they had already done, what they already had available. And so then I could adjust my farming habits earlier to get there faster. So even if you aren't in the end game, there's still a lot of good information that can apply to you here that, all right, if Phil is doing this, I probably shouldn't be doing that. And I'll make sure to kind of explain how this relates to I'm doing it here, this is why, right? So let's give a shout out to our channel members, as always, for their continued support. If y'all are ever interested, you know where the link is. It's down below, along with a link to our Discord. I really appreciate everybody just keeping the faith, believing in me through good, bad, thick, thin, vacations, not vacations. You guys really make content creating fun. I couldn't do it without all of you guys and your support. So let's get in here. Let's talk about the farming changes, the changes that your account goes through in the end game. All right, folks. So the first one that you're going to notice is the way that you spend resources, particularly like your relic levels. It changes a lot. You go from doing a lot of like quantity of things to quality. And what I mean by quality is just higher relics. That when you look at what I've done this year, if you're to go to my actual farms, I've only done a handful of new relics. In fact, I've got 3, 6, 10, 15 new relics. If you don't count my one Lightspeed bundle purchase, there's 15 new relic characters, right? Characters that went from level 0 to level, whatever they're at now. Whereas I've done 5, 10, 15 characters, 19 characters, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. 24 characters where I've increased their relic levels to some extent from wherever they were before. Whether it was Relic 3 to Relic 5, Relic 6s, Relic 7s, whatever the case is, all the way up to 9. And remember, that's not even including, like, these up here don't include the Relic 9 on Oppo, the Relic 8 on Ahsoka's team, and Darkseid Rey. We're not including those up here. So a lot of your upgrades in the end game is just relic increases. You're increasing the relic levels, you're increasing what you do, rather than necessarily building a lot of, and I say new. New doesn't just mean like new to like the Darkseid clones. It could even just be like new to you. Like armor would be a new relic for me. You don't do as many of those as you are just, hey, I've got these characters and I'm going to increase their relic levels. In the end game, that's what you do, because before this, you've built the journey guide. You've done everything else. You don't hear endgame players talking about how they need to farm Supreme Leader Kylo Ren or Sith Eternal. They've already got them. So their next task is bumping up the relic levels to improve their account, because that's the next step. That's the next thing that you need to do, is increase the relics, increase the quality of your characters, because there's not as many quantity increases that you can make. So if you're in the earlier part of the game, that's why I always tell you focus on the quantity. I can remember countless grand arenas where I beat an opponent where they had significantly more Relic 8s and or 9s than me. But with that, they had less Galactic Legends. Like, I distinctly remember one person had like triple the amount of Relic 9s and Relic 8s that I did. But they had like 3 less Galactic Legends, and I just completely wiped the floor with them. They couldn't clear either of my walls because I just set GLs and they couldn't beat them. Relic levels are great, but if you don't have enough GLs to back it up, it doesn't matter, right? Early on in the game, that quantity of stuff to force your opponent to get through is a lot harder, and then in the later stage, it's, all right, well, not only do you got to get through everything, but it's all Relic 9, right? So in the end game, quality, this Relic level increases because you're done with everything else. Next is the way you treat the new characters, the new farms. They're no longer this luxury. They're no longer this unobtainable thing of, oh, I'm just going to wait for a year until they're accelerated. Like, you're farming them immediately. And that was a big change for me. I distinctly remember the first couple of times when I was just sitting around waiting for something new to hit a node. And it was weird. It was really weird. Sometimes I'm still not used to it, where I'm like, wow, I can farm them right away. But that's what you have to do. And even to an extent, you're going to be doing refreshes on a lot of these units. You're going to be, refreshing their node. You're going to be trying to get them even faster, which is an even stranger thing because you don't have anything else to farm, right? It's not like you've got this laundry list of characters that you have to get to. It's a much smaller list, so you can spend more resources trying to get through it faster to stay more current in the game. And that habit is something that was difficult for me to get into of, all right, you've got to do the refresh. Because that 25 crystals is much cheaper than shipments. And so, this was a big change. It's still one that, again, I still have to, sit down sometimes with myself and be like, Phil, you got to do this. This is the smart thing to do. Be an end-game player. Set the example for your channel members. Set the example for your subscribers. That it's not luxury. I expect people to do this stuff now. Right? You guys will always hear me talk about, I use that expectations a lot of, whenever I was an athlete and I was running and what I would expect my teammates to do. It's the same thing with my guild. This is an expectation that you are staying current in the game at, an end game player, 12 million, 12.6 million. If you aren't farming these guys, I've got some questions. That's just the way that I am, right? That's what I expect of people to be doing. The next really farming habit that changes is your modding strategy. Your modding strategy really changes in the end game because at this point, and again, if you follow the Fat Phil method, you should have your mods sorted. They should be situated. You shouldn't have to worry about, all right, I've got to get mods on Rey. I've got to get mods on Lord Vader. Like, they're already there. And they're good because you've paid attention and you follow Fat Phil and you use his wisdom. I use my knowledge. I beg you. So how my modding strategy changed was I used to be very much like, all right, I'm going to mod Ahsoka. I'm going to mod Kylo. I'm going to mod Lord Vader. Then I'm going to move to General Syndulla. Then Kylo Ren Unmasked. Then Dark Trooper Moff Gideon. Then we're going to come down and make sure Jocasta and Grand Moff Tarkin have good mods. Right? It was kind of a character at a time, and I moved my way through. And so what that allowed me to do was kind of focus on the kind of mods that were going to help me. And maybe it wasn't always like a very specific, it might be a couple characters at a time, but that you kind of looked and said, all right, I need potency mods. I'm going to make sure I get the ones I need. And maybe once in a while you'd buy a unicorn one, but you were really just trying to get those potency mods. In the end game, I can tell you guys, my modding strategy is like getting, blindfolded and just throwing darts and hoping that one of them hits the bullseye. You have so many extra credits because you don't have to, you have so many credits because you don't have that many characters that you need to take to level 85. And with all these era battles and the Peridia Patrol and Duel of the Fates, getting the credits from those events, you find yourself in a massive surplus very quickly. And so I'm just kind of constantly buying mods that you're like, you know what? If it rolls the right speed, I can use it. Like, I just got this one on Bastila, and I was a little bit south of Cognizant. I should not have been spending calibration materials and slicing materials, because we really went to town on this one. I didn't get any of it on foot. It was bad. This was a bad night. But it's 18 speed, and I really don't have a place to put this outside of her. Like, it's not fast enough to take over some of the other characters. Even though it has good stats, it's just not fast enough to take over for any of the stuff that I have on other people at the current time. But once I kind of get some of the dark side clones up and running, I do have a really good place for this mod. I just have to wait for that to happen. And so that's one of the things you'll see in your modding strategy that will change, is you'll kind of have these mods where they're just on someone because you don't have anybody else to put it on at the moment. but give it some time and it happens. So, just the modding strategy really does change. It's a lot more like just hoping that you get that one mod that will roll the speed and the stats that you need, and it's just about volume. And you're not really honing in on one specific character to get the mods for. You're just seeing one that in general someone somewhere on your account could use, and you just go for it and hope that it sticks. And the ones that don't, you just kind of throw them on the characters that, hey, you know what? They're good enough. They're just not great. It's a good mod. Didn't get the speed or didn't get the offense, whatever the case is. You throw it on there and you move on with life, right? That's kind of, it's a little bit different where you get really picky, or it's harder to find the perfect home, and so they just end up on these other characters. And then you find out you have a very well modded roster because you've, just throwing darts at a wall. You're eventually going to get one to land, right? Finally, guys, it has to do with the way you spend energy. The way I spend energy has completely shifted in the end game. I used to be this big believer in my 3x3x50 and the 3x100, right? You do your 3 refreshes of mod, regular, fleet battles, and then your Cantina refreshes. Now, I'm literally only refreshing my Cantina and mod energy. I don't do any regular energy refreshes. I don't do any fleet energy refreshes. I don't have enough to farm on regular or fleet nodes at the current moment that I need to be refreshing those nodes because, like when Batcher went on to, if you go back to Batcher here for a second, when he went to the fleet, you naturally accumulate 240 free fleet energy a day, and then you get 45 for logging in. So you get like 280 fleet energy every single day. That's enough for me to do Batcher's node I can do 10 attempts on Batcher every day and still have energy left over. So it was one of those things where I didn't have anything else to farm there. Everything else on the fleet nodes is 7 stars, so I don't need to be doing refreshes because I already have them there. I can just wait. And it's even the same thing right now with Hunter, or with Wrecker Mercenary and with Crosshair. I have enough to do all of the refreshes that I want to do on those nodes because I don't have that much left to do. Maybe once these Darkside clones begin to go farmable, if they go to the node, maybe I have to have that conversation, but you really want to limit the amount of crystals you're spending on refreshes that aren't really helping you. I've got a lot of the gear that I need for a while. I've got a lot of the, relic materials I need for a while. So my crystals are better spent on getting some of these marquee packs for the new characters. They're better spent going and doing refreshes of, various assault battles, like particularly the Peridia Patrol and the Duel of the Fates assault battles, where I can earn, whether it's, the Gerda keypads, Impulse or the Gerda keypads, Droid Brains, and Omicrons, right? I'm better off spending my resources there than I am just getting a bunch of extra Kyrotech because I feel like it, right? I don't need the Kyrotech. I get so much of those from other sources. I'd rather use those crystals for other good in my account. And so, guys, with that, that's the changes, to my farming habits. Being in the mid game, you're a lot more focused on sort of rounding out your account and maximizing every little bit of it. That even if it's not the most efficient thing to do with your crystals, you've got to kind of put efficiency to the side because, like I always say, is it the most efficient thing for me to use crystals to, what's the word here? Like refreshing nodes and stuff. Is that truthfully the most efficient way to use your crystals? No, the most efficient thing to do with your crystals would be to go elsewhere, right? But in the context of me wanting to get these characters faster, that is the most efficient thing to do. That you've got to look at efficiency and think a little bit more beyond just, all right, from a resource perspective, maybe not the most efficient, but it's the most efficient use of my time. And remember, time is the one resource in this game that you have to always account for that's impossible to really tell, but time's the most valuable. Everything that can save you time, that can get you ahead, time-wise, is worth its weight in gold. So, let me know your thoughts down below, guys. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.